You ever watch someone dig themselves into a hole so deep you almost start to feel bad for them, even though they earned every inch of it? That's pretty much what happened with Margaret Whitmore, the former Queen Bee of Willowbrook Estates, who found out the hard way that private property actually means something out here in Cedar Valley. I'll never forget the sight that morning her fancy white Escalade nosed into the blackest mud you've ever seen, wheels spinning, engine hissing, her hair unraveling by the minute. I just sat in my kitchen, coffee in hand, watching her bang the steering wheel, absolutely furious at the world, like maybe physics itself had it out for her. The truth is, that mess was months in the making, and if you ask me, it couldn't have happened to a more deserving neighbor. Name's Robert Chin, and I own about 12 acres just on the edge of Willowbrook Estates. When I bought the land 5 years back, I was looking for quiet, maybe a place to raise a few chickens. Breathe easy after years packed in the city. Place had this old dirt road running through one corner, a private path just wide enough for tractors that connected the back of the subdivision to Highway 47. Nothing fancy. And according to every county record I ever saw, it was never public, never part of the community, just a shortcut that belonged to whoever owned the dirt. For the first couple years, I barely even thought about it. Most of the folks in Willowbrook seemed decent enough, and they used the main entrance like you're supposed to. Sure, it meant an extra minute or two of driving, but nobody complained. Things only got weird after Margaret took over as HOA president. If you've never met the type, let me paint a picture. Barely 5 feet tall, but her presence filled every room, sharp voice that could cut glass, and this permanent expression like the world just wasn't living up to her standards. Board meetings, she ran those like a drill sergeant, iron fist, fake smile, the whole package. First time I saw her Escalade rumbling down my road, I figured she must be lost, cell phone glued to her ear. Barely acknowledged me standing by the fence as she barreled past dust cloud trailing behind. I shrugged it off. Everybody gets turned around sometimes, right? But it wasn't a one-off. Next day, there she was, again and again, after that 7:15 sharp, cutting right through my property to save herself 3 minutes, then back again at 5:45 like clockwork. By the next week, it was obvious this was her new routine. So I decided to try the neighborly thing. Walked up to her house, big Mediterranean number 3-car garage lawn, so perfect it looked fake. She opened the door in Lululemon gear, made up like she was heading to a magazine shoot, but I could tell she wasn't about to hit the gym. I told her real polite that the dirt road was private and I'd appreciate it if she used the main entrance like everyone else. She looked at me like I'd just tracked manure into her foyer. Informed me she was the HOA president, had important places to be, and couldn't waste time on unnecessary detours. Then she started ranting about community rights and threatened to dig up some legal easement. Classic Margaret rules, for thee, not for me. Thing is, after that chat, she didn't back off. She doubled down. Started driving even faster, sometimes clipping my fence posts. Didn't even stop to check the damage. I found tire tracks, snapped boards, and not so much as a note. So I put up no trespassing signs, big bold private property, all legal. Next morning, I find one of those signs in the ditch, tire tracks running right over it. I started documenting everything, pictures, videos, the works. Filed a complaint with the sheriff, but without a fence or gate, they said it was tricky to prosecute. They suggested I send a certified letter. I did. She signed for it, then tossed it in the trash. By then, Margaret treated the whole thing like a game, honking every time she passed my house, sometimes as early as 6:30 on weekends. But what finally snapped my patience was that Thursday morning after a big rain. I went out to check my vegetable garden and found deep ruts carved right through my yard, an irrigation pipe cracked and spewing water everywhere. Not just trespassing anymore, that was straight up vandalism. I called my lawyer, Jennifer Patel, and she said I was well within my rights to make it a whole lot harder for trespassers as long as I didn't set traps. So that weekend I got to work. Graded the dirt road with my tractor so it looked extra smooth, inviting, like the world's most welcoming shortcut. But underneath, I dug a few shallow pits, filled them with clay and water, and camouflaged the whole thing with dry topsoil. Created a few perfect little mud traps deep enough to swallow the heaviest SUV if you hit them at speed. Down by the creek where she'd torn up my grass, I rerouted a little irrigation to keep the ground soaked year-round, impossible to cross without getting bogged down. Then, for good measure, I installed motion-activated sprinklers, industrial grade, the kind that could drench a buffalo, and lined the path with some big decorative boulders so no one could barrel through without slowing down. Everything was by the book. I was just landscaping, right? Nothing happened for a few days. Guess she was out of town or working from home. Then early Wednesday, just as I'm pouring my coffee, I hear that Escalade engine whining through the trees a bit earlier than usual. I watch as she hits the first pit, doing maybe 25 front wheels, drop right in mudflies everywhere. Sprinklers fire off, soaking her windows. She slams it in reverse, tries to rock free, but those fancy rear tires just dig deeper and deeper. I grab my mug and stroll down, tried my best to keep a straight face while she's sitting in there wild-eyed, furiously tapping at her phone, but the reception out here is garbage. When she sees me, she cracks her window and yells that her lawyer's gonna have my hide. I told her again she was trespassing and I'd be happy to speak with whatever lawyer she wanted. 20 minutes of spinning wheels later, she finally got a call out to a tow truck. But when the driver showed up and saw her stuck on private land, he refused to touch the vehicle without the owner's go-ahead. I politely declined. Liability and all you know, Margaret flipped calls 911, tells the dispatcher she's being held hostage. Sheriff's Deputy Martinez rolls up, guys familiar with the drama by now, and after looking around, he calmly informs Margaret that she's not only trespassing, but she's on the hook for property damage too. Writes her up for criminal trespass and destruction of property. The tow truck guy says he'll help, but only if she signs a waiver, no liability for my land. She does, and after 2 hours and a whole lot of cursing, her Escalade comes out looking like it lost a fight with a swamp. Cracked bumper mud caked everywhere, something under the hood making a sound you don't want to hear if you care about your car. The tow fee, $800, not including repairs. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse, Deputy Martinez lets her know that the criminal trespassing charge carries up to a $1,000 fine and she's liable for damages. Repeat it. She could face jail time. Margaret's face went through every shade you can imagine. Angry red, embarrassed purple, finally settled on a kind of paper white as it all sank in. Word spread through Willowbrook Estates fast. Turns out a lot of folks had stories about Margaret's leadership. Within a week, the HOA board held a special meeting. Rumor was abusing your power to trespass wasn't a good look. They voted her out unanimously, stripped her of the presidency, kicked her off the board. And that wasn't the end. My lawyer filed a civil suit for the busted irrigation, the torn up grass, and the broken fence. Cost her another $200. Her own legal bills just to fight the trespass charge ran to $5,000. She lost, of course. Judge hit her with $500 in fines and 40 hours of community service. But the real twist came later. A neighbor who I'd barely spoken to before forwarded the police report to Margaret's employer. Turns out she'd been logging her commutes as work time, faking client meetings while running personal errands through my yard. They fired her on the spot, lost her six-figure job, her company car, the whole package. Last I saw her, Margaret was in court, mascara running down her cheeks, the whole perfect facade gone. I'd be lying if I said I felt bad, but you know what I mean. Sometimes karma just shows up right on schedule. Now folks drive the long way around. My road is quiet again, gardens thriving, and nobody honks at sunrise anymore. But the neighborhood still buzzes. Half the folks think I was too harsh. Others think I should have installed an alligator pit. What do you think? Was I right to go that far? Or does standing up for your land make you the villain these days? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear where you stand on justice, neighbors, and a little well-earned payback.